it doesn't take long to look at the news and see the issues that we're having. And of course, I've got to mention these mass shootings, the gun violence that we are experiencing in this country today. Do you know that in 2021, more people died from gun violence in the United States of America than in 8 years of combat in Vietnam? More than 48,000 plus people died in 2021 from gun violence. And of course, the mass shootings get all the attention, but there's people getting shot every day. And unfortunately, when in Detroit, I come across people in my courtroom all the time who lost a brother, lost a mother, lost a child to gun violence. It's maddening. And no other country would tolerate this. As I see it, police and schools are not going to fix this. Guns with teachers are not going to resolve this. Locks on doors are not going to keep us safe. What we're going to be talking today, I believe, is our only chance to really fix that issue, as well as help our juvenile youth to really thrive. So that's where I'm going. That's where we need to be going. We need to be on a mission to bring peace to our communities. And I'm going to be pushing for these options that I'm talking about today to be the first treatment option that we address, not the last or some alternative or something that we try when everything else has failed. And I can guarantee you, and how often do you get a guarantee in juvenile court? I can guarantee you that when, not if, but when we adopt these practices on a widespread basis, we're going to have less trouble, we're going to have less crime, we're going to see kids thrive, and on top of that, the cost of treatment is going to sink like a stone. So let's go back to the toolbox for a minute, all right? And what's missing? I talked about inside out options, treatments, right? Tools, right? I was trying to think of that word there. All right. So, and we've got to go back to the 19th century. And I'm not talking about the 19th century AD. I'm talking about the 19th century BC, because these are tools that have been around for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Now, why would that be? They must work. Why would people keep doing something for thousands of years if they weren't effective? But this, we can go to our next slide. This is Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean. And of course, he was a branding tool for whatever the company was, Ajax or whatever, I'm not even sure. But Mr. Clean represented cleaning items that we had for our kitchens and our bathrooms. And we have dishwashers to clean our dishes. And we have car washes to clean our cars. And we have special cleaners to clean our rugs. But what about cleaning what we rely on the most? What are we doing to clean our mind? That's more important than anything else. We spend all this time, taking our clothes to the cleaners. What are we doing to clean our mind? And what's going on in our mind? So, how many thoughts do we have? And we have something, and maybe some of you have seen this research. I was amazed when I came across this research, and I've seen it referenced a number of places. And we can go to how many thoughts we have. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. Researchers say we have 60,000 thoughts a day. That comes out to 41 thoughts per minute. That's an awful lot of thoughts. All right. And that's just the way that our mind works in normal consciousness if we're not doing something special to address our consciousness. And what kind of thoughts are we having? Well, research indicates those 60,000 thoughts, 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. Oh, that computes to 32 negative thoughts a minute. What do we see here? This could be our mind, right? And all these thoughts just flooding out, rushing at us constantly. And you can't clean your mind when this is going on. All right. That's like trying to wash a car when it's driving through the mud. It's just not going to work. So we need a way to slow this down. And just like this gentleman here is going to slow things down right now, slow that down. If we're going to clean our mind, we're going to have to be able to slow that flood of thoughts down some way or another. All right. And what if we could really slow it down? What if we could go to this type? Here's another image now here, slow motion. What if we could slow the rate of thought in our minds to something like what we're seeing here? Look at how peaceful that is. Now, in this mode, we can start thinking about, we can really start working on cleaning our mind. These are images, these are brain functioning images, all right? And research tells us our brains have 100 billion neurons. I can't even imagine how many that is, but 100 billion neurons. And the way that when we think, of course, we have synaptic connections. That's how the brain works. But when the brain is under stress, it can't work normally. And if you look at this image on the right, where the stressed brain, you see all these holes. It looks like Swiss cheese, for God's sake. Well, those are functional degradations where the brain is not able to operate properly. And so, let's think about what happens with juveniles when they come in our court and they've done this or they've done that or whatever they've done. But most of them, they're traumatized. They're not working with a full deck. Their deck has been degraded by the trauma that they have suffered. But when you start adopting these practices that I'm going to be talking about in a minute here, you can actually start to heal the brain. You can end up with a brain that fills in these functions, these functional gaps. And you can end up with a brain that looks like the brain on the left side with the optimal level of functioning, where it really can, the neurons can really work together. You really can be successful and productive.